this video, there is an audio code word. So what that means is I'm going to be saying a code word out loud, but not writing it. So you need to be listening to this video. Okay, we're on page 95. We're in question 7, and I'm going to show you an example of how the quadratic formula works. Okay, so you'll be given an equation like this where you have to solve. Now, you notice it's already equals 0, so remember we're looking for x-intercepts, right? You could, sometimes you'll be given this equation as y equals, right, with an x, but we've already plugged in 0 for y, and so we're ready to use the quadratic formula. So the first thing you're going to do, and in Edge Elastic you're going to be asked to do this, you're going to identify A, B, and C. And this is a great first step to just take and write out, because most of the mistakes are just little kind of simple, detail-oriented mistakes, so you can prevent those. So in this case, A is the number being multiplied by x squared, it's 5. B is the number being multiplied by x, it's negative 13. And C is the number that's not multiplied by any x, and it's negative 6. Okay, now the formula, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the formula here at the top of the page. And then that way you can use it for all your problems without recopying it every time. So it's opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, now the most complicated part of this, in terms of simplifying, is this part right here. Okay, so what I'm going to ask is, in Edge Elastic, I'm going to actually ask for this part separate, and that is going to help us help you, because we're going to see if you have a mistake in this part, it's going to be easier for us to find because we're going to ask you for it specifically. Okay, so you'll see in Edge Elastic, there'll be a blank that just asks you for this part, and then you'll see in my work that the rest of the simplification, once you have this part correct, the rest of the simplification isn't too bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug in. I have x equals, and notice how I'm splitting the lines so that my work can be nice and neat across 2 lines. Okay, and I'm skipping lines. I'm leaving myself a lot of space. Each problem is going to take up a half a page because it's just way easier if it's sort of visually easy to see. Okay, so the opposite of b. B is negative 13. So the opposite of b is positive 13. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's negative 13 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Okay, so notice it was b squared minus 4 times a times c. I've plugged that all in, all over 2 times a. Okay, so this is what it looks like all plugged in. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. This is the part that takes the most simplifying. You can see this is already just a number. This is just one multiplication step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over here. Okay, and notice I'm leaving myself a lot of space because I'm going to want to use this space down here. And I'm going to simplify this over here. You're going to put that answer separately in Edge Elastic, and then I'm going to bring it back to here, and it's going to make this process pretty short, actually. Okay, so let's simplify. There's 2 pieces of this. There's the first is negative 13 squared. Now, remember, negative times negative is positive, and positive times positive is positive. So when I square a number, I'm always going to get a positive. So 13 times 13 is 169. Okay, now, next I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at signs first. So I'm going to ignore the numbers for a second, and I'm going to think to myself, okay, negative times positive, that's negative. Times another negative, that's positive. So it's going to be plus. Now, 4 times 5 is 20, times 6 is 120. Okay, now notice this is all, I'm going to take the square root sign over here. This is all still under a square root sign. Right, so I took this piece, and don't forget the square root sign, because when I add these, I get 289. And the square root of 289, now if I want to put that in Google, right, some of you are using a Google calculator, you would type it like this. Okay, this is how you would type square root. You should also have access to the calculator in Edge Elastic. Okay, but square root of 289 would look like this in Google. And the square root of 289 is 17. That means 17 times 17 equals 289. So what that means all of this junk right here, it just equals 17. So watch what I'm going to do next when I bring it down. 13 plus or minus 17. And I'm also going to do this simplification here. 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so now I have this. Okay, now, what does this mean, this plus or minus? Remember this symbol? Okay, we've actually seen it before. It means this could be, because remember I'm going to have 2 answers here, right? Just like when I solved by factoring. It means this could be a plus sign, could be 13 plus 17, or it could be a minus sign, 13 minus 17. And either way, it's going to get me 2 different answers. So I'm going to just do both. So this is 13 plus 17 over 10, and 13 minus 17 over 10. And I'm going to simplify them one at a time. And the audio code word is May, like the month of May, M-A-Y. The audio code word is May, M-A-Y. Okay, 13 plus 17 is 30 over 10. 30 divided by 10 is 3. So one of my answers is 3. Okay, now this one, 13 minus 17, that's negative 4 over 10. I notice that these can both be divided by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, 10 divided by 2 is 5. And since it's a negative divided by positive, it's a negative. That negative can go out in front or it can go on the 2. But either way, make sure, let me make it clear on my paper, it's negative 2/5. Okay? Now, in this case, I have a negative and a positive solution. So my negative is definitely the smaller solution. And my positive solution is definitely the larger solution. Okay, so my solutions in this case would be 3 and negative 2/5. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and you're going to do 3 practice problems like this. So you're going to do problem number 8 right here. And then you'll flip the page to page 96 to do problem 9 and 10. Okay, but I'm going to just go ahead and encourage you to set up your workspace just like the example. It's easy to think like, man, I don't want to write all this. But in actuality, you're going to save yourself time because you're not going to make a mistake and you're not going to have to do it twice. Okay, so you're going to set up your workspace for square root of b squared minus 4ac over here. And you'll start with your a, b, and c here and plug in right there.